It's late September 1943. Deep behind enemy lines in the heart of Japanese-occupied Singapore, a single fishing vessel slipped unnoticed through the darkness. Aboard are a small team of Australian and British commandos. Their mission? Infiltrate one of the most heavily guarded harbours in the Pacific, attach limpet mines to Japanese warships, and escape without a trace. Surrounded by hostile Japanese forces, they paddled silently through the darkness in their two-man collapsible canoes, armed only with explosives, small arms, and an unyielding determination. They prepared to face the ultimate test. The tension was suffocating. Every splash of a paddle, every slap of water against their canoes could betray them. Japanese patrols prowled the harbour, their searchlights slicing through the night. With every passing second, the danger grew. Each commando remained silent. Highly trained, they knew their role. They knew the stakes. Success could cripple Japanese supply lines and send shockwaves through their defences. Failure meant capture, torture, or worse. This is the story of the Australian Special Forces during World War II, and how Australian commandos became the bane of the Japanese in the Southwest Pacific. Today's Australian Special Forces are among the most elite in the world. From counter-terrorism to global peacekeeping, they are a cornerstone of national security. But these modern warriors didn't emerge in isolation. They are the product of a long and proud tradition. Before the Special Air Service Regiment or the 2nd Commando Regiment, there were the original Australian Commandos, pioneers of unconventional warfare. Their story began during World War II, when Australia faced its darkest hour. Outnumbered and underprepared, these men became the first to adopt guerrilla tactics, operating deep behind enemy lines. During World War II, as the Japanese Empire expanded across the Pacific, Australia faced a direct and unprecedented threat. The country needed a highly trained force capable of unconventional warfare, specialists who could operate behind enemy lines, disrupt supply chains, and gather intelligence. The result was the formation of Australian commando units, who became one of the most versatile and effective forces in the region. The concept of Australian commandos was inspired by the success of British commando operations early in the war. In 1941, the Australian government approved the formation of independent companies, modelled on the British system but tailored for the rugged, jungle-filled landscapes of the Pacific. These units were trained in guerrilla tactics, sabotage, reconnaissance, and survival under extreme conditions. Recruits underwent rigorous training at the Guerrilla Warfare School at Foster, Victoria, and later at Canungra in Queensland. They learned hand-to-hand combat, demolitions, small boat handling, and jungle survival. The training emphasized self-reliance, as these units were often deployed deep behind enemy lines with limited support. During World War II, Australia raised several commando units, which were initially called independent companies, and later renamed commando squadrons. These included the 2nd 1st to the 2nd 12th independent companies, active in campaigns across Timor, New Guinea, and Borneo. The Z Special Unit, a joint Australian-British venture, was directly modelled after the British Special Operations Executive and focused on covert and sabotage operations. Each unit played a unique role, and their actions spanned the entire Pacific region. Among the many missions conducted by Australian commandos, one stands out as a masterpiece of planning, execution, and impact: Operation Jaywick. This operation was carried out by Z Special Unit and remains one of the most successful covert operations in the Pacific War. Operation Jaywick was designed to cripple Japanese shipping in the vital port of Singapore, a hub for the Japanese war effort. In 1943, the Japanese had established strong naval dominance in Southeast Asia, making disruption of their supply chains critical for Allied strategy. The mission was led by Major Ivan Lyon of the British SOE and Captain Herbert Ted Cass of the Australian Army. A team of 14 men, comprising both Australian and British personnel, set sail on a captured Japanese fishing boat, the Crate. After weeks of evading Japanese patrols on the open sea, the commandos aboard the Crate had reached the outskirts of Singapore. Their disguise as humble fishermen had worked so far, but now the real danger began. Major Ivan Lyon, a seasoned leader known for his calm under pressure, gathered his men for one final briefing. Each man knew their role, and there was no room for error. The team carried collapsible canoes, small enough to be launched in the water, but durable enough to carry explosives and their lives into the heart of the harbour. As the Commandos paddled closer to the heavily guarded harbor, the scale of the challenge became clear. The massive Japanese fleet loomed before them, casting long shadows under the moonlight. Searchlights crisscrossed the water, and patrol boats moved methodically through the harbor. Every stroke of the paddle, every faint creak of the canoes felt like it could be their last. One by one, the Commandos dove beneath the enemy ships, securing limpet mines to their hulls. Each dive was a gamble, with the slightest sound or misstep threatening to expose them. Patrol boats moved within meters of their position. For Lyon and his men, the question wasn't just if they would succeed, but if they would make it out alive. As dawn broke, a series of deafening explosions rocked the harbor. 7 Japanese ships, critical to their supply operations, were destroyed. Chaos erupted as the Japanese scrambled to respond, but by then, the Commandos were gone. Laying low until the commotion of the attack died down, the Commandos eventually made their way back to the crate, arriving back at the ship 6 days later on the 2nd of October. They then had a relatively uneventful return back to Australia, with the ship and crew arriving safely back at Exmouth Gulf on the 19th of October. Whilst the men returned to Australia as heroes, due to the covert nature of the mission, their success and amazing feats would remain a secret for many years. Against all odds, Operation Jaywick was a success, crippling Japanese supply lines and proving the immense impact of small, well-trained teams in modern warfare. Operation Jaywick was not just a daring raid, it was a testament to the ingenuity and bravery of Australia's original Commandos, setting a standard for special operations that continues to this day. The destruction of Japanese shipping disrupted supply chains and exposed vulnerabilities in the Japanese naval defense system, forcing the enemy to divert resources to strengthen port security. For the Allies, especially Australians, this was a rare and much-needed victory during a difficult period in the Pacific War. Despite its success, Jaywick also had consequences. Sadly, Japanese reprisals against local populations in Singapore were severe, with many civilians accused of assisting the Allies. Operation Jaywick was just one of many covert operations. Across the Pacific, Australian commandos proved time and again that unconventional tactics, relentless determination, and small, highly trained teams could change the course of the war. During the Timor campaign, and left stranded after the island fell to Japanese forces, the Second Independent Company waged a relentless guerrilla war. Using sabotage and ambush tactics, they disrupted Japanese operations and tied down thousands of enemy troops. Isolated from reinforcements, these commandos became masters of jungle warfare, proving that small, determined units could cripple a much larger force. During the Kokoda Track campaign, Australian commandos operated ahead of the main force, conducting reconnaissance and harassing Japanese supply lines. Their intelligence gave the Allies an edge in one of the war's most grueling battles. At the Battle of Wau, independent companies delayed Japanese reinforcements with hit-and-run tactics, buying time for Australian defenders to fortify the town. Their efforts turned the tide of the battle. In the Finisterre Ranges, scaling the steep jungle-covered mountains, commandos cleared key positions, paving the way for the Allied advance. The terrain was as much an enemy as the Japanese, but the commandos proved equal to the task. On Bougainville, commando squadrons like the 8th patrolled relentlessly, gathering intelligence and launching precision raids. Their actions disrupted Japanese defenses, ensuring Allied offensives could advance with fewer casualties. In the Aitape-Wewak region, units like the 7th and 10th Commando Squadrons relentlessly pursued Japanese remnants, clearing vital areas for the Allies. Their aggressive patrolling left no room for the enemy to regroup. And finally, in Borneo, Z Special Unit and the 3rd Commando Squadron conducted sabotage missions and supported local resistance fighters. Operations like Agas weakened Japanese positions ahead of Australia's amphibious assaults, ensuring decisive victories. Overall, these missions not only disrupted Japanese operations, but cemented the legacy of Australia's 1st Special Forces. Unfortunately, however, not all of their covert operations were a success. In a follow-up to Operation Jaywick, Operation Remau ended in tragedy. Undertaken by members of Z Special Unit, the team was detected and after a fierce battle, all were either captured or killed. While other Allied missions in the Pacific focused on large-scale battles, these missions highlighted the potential of small-scale precision strikes. It showed that a handful of well-trained individuals could achieve results that rivaled entire divisions, cementing the importance of special operations in modern warfare. But what became of the men of Operation Jaywick, who carried out one of the most daring and successful covert missions of World War II? Major Ivan Lyon, the co-leader of the mission, responsible for planning and execution. Tragically, Lyon was killed during Operation Rimau in 1944. Lyon and his team were captured by the Japanese after a firefight, and he was killed during the operation. His death marked the loss of one of the most innovative minds behind Australia's wartime special operations. Captain Herbert Ted Cass, co-leader alongside Lyon, Cass was instrumental in ensuring the operation's success through his leadership and strategic insight. Cass survived the war and returned to Australia, where he led a quiet post-war life. Despite his pivotal role in Jaywick, Cass rarely spoke about his experiences, embodying the humility that characterized many World War II veterans. He passed away in 1970. Lieutenant Donald Davidson, navigator of the Crate, ensuring the team reached Singapore undetected and returned home safely. Davidson survived both Jaywick and the war. After the conflict, he resumed civilian life and largely avoided the public spotlight, much like his fellow team members. The remaining members of the Operation Jaywick team, including Commandos such as Brennan, Falls, Page and Carey, also survived the war. Many returned to civilian life, working in various professions, and didn't publicly dwell on their wartime exploits. The men of Jaywick faced unique challenges upon returning home. Their mission remained classified for years, and their contributions were not widely recognized until long after the war ended. This secrecy contributed to a lack of immediate acknowledgement, though in later years, their bravery and achievements were celebrated as a defining moment in Australia's military history. For those who participated in both Operation Jaywick and the ill-fated Operation Rimau, the story was far more tragic. While Jaywick's survivors lived to see the end of the war, many of those involved in Rimau were executed or died in captivity, highlighting the immense risks these men took in their daring missions. The story of Australian commandos in the Pacific Theatre is a testament to courage, ingenuity, and resilience. Operations like Jaywick were game changers, proving that unconventional tactics could turn the tide in a global conflict. Their legacy lives on, inspiring modern special forces worldwide. If you believe like we do, that we need to honor the men that came before us, then please share this video with others. And as always, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for your support, and we will see you on the next video.